At first glance, nothing looks wrong. RVs are still parked. Prices still look familiar. Salespeople still sound confident. But markets don't break loudly. They fracture underneath.
Working for you tonight, several viewers reaching out to us saying a Grand Junction RV dealership left them high and dry and in debt.
What you're seeing right now is an illusion of stability built on delayed pricing, hidden pressure, and inventory that can't move the way it used to. And once that illusion cracks, it doesn't give buyers time to adjust. It resets fast. The people who lose the most are the ones watching the obvious signals instead of the real ones. So I'll show you what's already changed, why it's being hidden, and how timing, not excitement, decides who wins the artificial demand spike. Lockdowns changed travel behavior almost overnight in the year 2020. Airports emptied, hotels shut down, and families looked for a way to leave home without relying on crowded spaces. The RV was repositioned fast, not as a hobby or long-term commitment, but as a controlled escape during uncertainty. Stimulus payments and low borrowing costs amplified that shift. Money arrived quickly, and the emotional pressure to regain freedom did the rest. Orders surged from households that had never owned, stored, or maintained a RV before. The decision was driven by availability and fear, not by how often it would actually be used. Dealers reinforced the urgency, wait lists stretched, delivery windows expanded. Scarcity became part of the pitch, and it worked. Very few buyers stopped to calculate storage fees, fuel consumption, or long-term upkeep. The RV was treated as a temporary solution, not a durable asset. What mattered most is this demand was pulled forward. It did not represent a permanent change in travel behavior. It represented a reaction to confinement. When movement returned, the motivation faded quietly, but the orders did not. Zoom out from the dealership. Now, picture the entire supply chain like a cargo ship. Once it's moving, it doesn't stop on a dime. Orders surged, so schedules expanded, suppliers locked in, shifts got added. And by the time the ship realized the water changed, it was already heading straight into oversupply. Manufacturing misread the signal. Factories interpreted the order surge as confirmation of lasting demand. Production schedules expanded, supplier contracts locked in, and additional shifts were added. Capacity increased quickly because the numbers appeared to justify it. Forecast models relied on recent data, not historical cycles. Long lead times created another distortion. Dealers overordered defensively, afraid of returning to empty lots. Allocation systems rewarded volume commitments, so requests ballooned. Everything appeared rational, while units sold before arrival and back orders grew longer. Early warning signs emerged quietly. Campground demand softened. Inquiry traffic slowed. Yet production plans were already locked months ahead. Slowing output risked penalties, supplier conflicts, and workforce reductions. No one wanted to trigger, so assembly lines kept running. Components arrived on schedule. Finished RVs shipped as planned. The system favored momentum over caution, because reversing course carried immediate pain. By the time sales velocity dropped clearly, thousands of units were already committed to delivery. Dealers accepted them to protect relationships and future allocations. Production never adjusted in time. This delay guaranteed oversupply before anyone acknowledged demand had changed. The machines kept moving long after the signal had shifted. Because once production momentum overtakes market reality, the pressure transfers downstream to owners. If this breakdown is helping you see what's really happening behind dealer lots, take a second to support the channel. Like and subscribe so you don't miss updates, and share your experience below, especially recent prices you're seeing locally today. Let's educate each other. Ownership reality sets in. As daily life normalized, ownership costs became unavoidable. Fuel prices rose steadily. Storage facilities filled and raised rates. Campgrounds became crowded and more expensive. The RV shifted from escape tool to ongoing obligation. Monthly payments continued, whether the unit moved or not. Insurance, registration, and maintenance followed. Many owners realized they traveled far less than expected. The emotional payoff declined, but the financial commitment did not. Loan balances stayed high, while practical utility dropped. Trade offers came in lower than expected. Private listings sat with little interest. Negative equity appeared quietly, locking owners in place. Some waited, hoping usage would increase later. Others faced health changes, relocations, or family needs that reduced travel further. The gap between cost and benefit widened month by month. Units returned through early trade-ins, consignment attempts, and quiet surrenders. Each return added strain to a system already carrying excess production. Oversupply isn't just too many units. It's too many units when turnover disappears. During the boom, RVs sold before arrival. After the boom, they sit long enough to become a liability. That shift from speed to stillness is what flips a dealership from confident to desperate. Inventory stops moving. Returned units met continuous shipments, and movement slowed sharply. New RVs sat longer without buyers. Trade-ins waited for appraisal. Lots filled physically, while transactions stalled underneath. Managers hesitated to adjust pricing publicly, expecting demand to rebound. Without clear price discovery, decisions stopped. Sales teams waited. Inventory aged. Manufacturers continued shipping against earlier commitments. From the outside, nothing looked broken. Lots appeared full. Showrooms stayed open. But internally, time became the enemy. Each parked unit represented locked capital and growing obligation. The longer inventory stayed still, the harder it became to move, without consequence. Flexibility disappeared quietly across multiple layers at once. No single failure triggered it. Everything simply slowed together. Inventory did not need to increase to become dangerous. It only needed to stop moving. Once that happened, pressure accumulated silently. Think of every RV on a lot like a taxi with the meter running even when it's parked. Floor plan financing is that meter. In good times, it's invisible. In slow times, it screams. And when enough meters run long enough, dealers don't wait it out. They start cutting quietly. How dealer inventory is actually financed. Dealer lots look owned, but most RVs sitting there belong to banks, floor plan financing funds, inventory through short-term credit lines tied to each unit. The dealer does not pay upfront, the bank does. Ownership stays with the lender until sale clears. Interest accrues daily on every unit. Whether a RV moves or not, the meter runs. The longer it sits, the more it costs. This structure works only when turnover stays fast and predictable. During strong cycles, this system looks invisible. Units sell quickly, interest exposure stays small, and credit resets smoothly. Dealers learn to rely on this rhythm, building operations around constant movement. The risk hides in speed dependence. If movement slows even slightly, carrying costs rise immediately. The model does not bend, it snaps once timing breaks. Most shoppers never see this structure, but it governs every decision behind the lot. Cash flow matters more than margin when interest clocks never stop. What happens when the cost of holding inventory rises every single day and lenders start asking for protection cash infusions or inventory cuts? That's where survival mode starts. Why interest rates break the model. When rates rose, floor plan math broke immediately. Each increase multiplied daily, carrying costs across entire lots. What once felt manageable turned heavy fast. Short-term credit lines adjusted upward, not gradually but suddenly. Banks reprice risk quickly. Interest expense jumped without warning, compressing operating room. As values shifted, lenders demanded protection. Collateral calls appeared, requiring cash infusions or inventory reductions. Dealers faced choices they could not postpone. Credit lines tightened further, terms shortened. Covenants hardened. The system stopped assuming growth and started enforcing survival. This shift changed behavior immediately. Decisions once delayed became urgent. Every unsold RV carried more weight with each passing day. Profit stopped being the goal. Liquidity took over. Staying current mattered more than optimizing outcomes. Rate pressure exposed how little cushion existed. The model relied on cheap money staying cheap. Once that assumption failed, everything downstream felt it. Dealers could not negotiate with math. Interest accumulated regardless of intention or optimism. Survival mode replaced planning mode across the industry, quietly but decisively, changing every internal calculation. No one could wait for conditions to improve anymore. There was no buffer left. Every delay increased exposure because higher rates turned time itself into a financial enemy. Why prices start cracking? Once pressure peaked, dealer behavior shifted quietly. Public pricing stayed stable while internal concessions multiplied. Discounts appeared off-menu and off-paperwork. Bundles became the preferred mask. Accessories, service credits, and extras filled gaps without touching advertised numbers. The cut was real but hidden. Managers focused on moving units fast. Quiet approvals replaced layered review. The goal shifted from optimal outcome to immediate relief. When that was not enough, auctions offered release. They converted inventory into cash quickly, even if results disappointed. Speed mattered more than outcome. This behavior was not strategic. It was reactive. Decisions compressed under financial stress, reducing tolerance for delay. Behind the scenes, pricing authority narrowed. Fewer people approved exceptions. Faster, yes. Responses replaced careful evaluation. The system rewarded speed, not caution. Moving a RV today mattered more than protecting tomorrow. This was the moment when cracks became visible internally, even if outward messaging stayed controlled. Pressure doesn't erase liability, it relocates it. The buyer becomes the final quality control checkpoint, usually without realizing it. And the scary part is the delay. Problems surface when your options are gone. Now imagine what happens when thousands of units like that hit the wholesale pipeline, because auctions don't care about excuses. Quality control starts failing. Under constant pressure, internal processes started slipping. Inspections compressed, documentation rushed. What once took time became transactional. Service teams faced unrealistic timelines. Units moved through bays faster than designed. Minor issues went unresolved to meet deadlines. Disclosure suffered quietly. Notes shortened. Explanations trimmed. Risk shifted outward without announcement. Most of this happened without malice. It was structural. Speed incentives overwhelmed quality safeguards. Once shortcuts become normalized, reversing them becomes difficult. Habits form quickly under pressure. Liability did not disappear, it migrated. Responsibility shifted away from the point of sale. These changes were not visible on walkthroughs. They lived in paperwork timing and inspection depth. Most buyers never saw the difference immediately. The consequences arrived later. This erosion was the cost of sustained pressure, meeting limited time. It did not stop on its own. Quality failures do not announce themselves loudly. They surface quietly over time. By then, responsibility is hard to assign. That delay is what makes them dangerous. It creates problems no contract language can fix. Pressure made this outcome inevitable. See, shortcuts always surface when pressure replaces patience. Auctions reset reality. Wholesale auctions are where emotion disappears and reality takes over. No polished lighting, no sales language, just lanes, bids, and final numbers. When RVs roll through these lanes, they are judged only by demand at that moment. Nothing else matters. As volume increased, prices reset fast. Units that once cleared confidently now struggled to attract bids. Drops of 30 to 50% compared to prior peaks became common across multiple classes. These were not isolated events. They repeated week after week. Each low result did more than clear a single unit. It recalibrated expectations for every similar RV tied to that outcome. One weak sale dragged entire categories lower. That is how floors move. Auction results travel fast inside the system. They feed valuation models, internal benchmarks, and risk calculations. Once those numbers change, nothing upstream can ignore them. The public rarely sees these transactions, but banks, insurers, and lenders watch every lane closely. Auctions do not debate value, they declare it. This is where prices stop being aspirational and start being factual. Once that happens, nothing can go back quietly. Auctions remove storytelling from valuation. They force decisions into binary outcomes, sell or fail. When volume increases, emotional attachment disappears completely. Repetition locks new norms into place quickly. These outcomes matter because they propagate through valuation systems instantly, resetting expectations far beyond the individual units crossing the block. When auctions reset value, financial institutions are forced to respond. Credit pullback accelerates the fall. As auction values fell, lenders adjusted immediately. Approval standards tightened without public announcement. Loans that once cleared easily now required stronger profiles and stricter terms. Appraisals followed wholesale results downward. The same RV suddenly supported less borrowing. That gap stopped deals before they started. Retail pricing could not stay detached. When financing fails, transactions fail. Listings sat longer. Reductions followed quietly. The lag closed. This response was procedural, not emotional. Credit models reacted to new data. Risk tolerance narrowed automatically. Each declined loan slowed movement further. Each lowered appraisal reinforced caution. The cycle fed itself. Nothing here depended on confidence or sentiment. It depended on numbers updating across systems. The effect rippled outward. Private sellers felt it. Dealers felt it. Anyone relying on borrowed money felt it. Retail pricing always trails wholesale. It does not argue with it. It follows. New inventory depends on production choices. Used inventory often ignores choice. It follows schedules, contracts, household decisions, and payment realities. So even when dealers try to slow the bleeding, used supply can surge anyway, and it hits the market with fewer protections. That's how the risk shifts from price to condition. Why used inventory is surging. Used inventory surged for reasons unrelated to pricing signals. Early pandemic owners began exiting in waves as usage declined and obligations remained. Rental fleets added volume next. Companies that expanded aggressively liquidated entire batches at once. Identical RVs hit the market together. Overwhelming absorption. Lease returns arrived simultaneously. Contracts written years earlier ended together, releasing inventory regardless of conditions. Each source acted independently. Together, they flooded the system. None of this waited for balance. Timing was fixed. Units returned whether demand existed or not. This surge was mechanical. It followed contracts, schedules, and household decisions already made. The market did not prepare for this convergence. It had no pause button. As used volume rose, pressure intensified everywhere else. Choices narrowed. Then, another layer joined quietly. Payment failures increased as obligations outpaced use. Repossessions followed process, not sentiment. When they arrive, they go straight to liquidation. That added fuel to a system already strained. Zombie units are the hidden cost of speed under pressure. But the price collapse doesn't hit every RV equally. The next break happens by category starting, where the buyer pool is smallest and the carrying costs are biggest. That's why high-end units lead the fall, and they drag the rest behind them. The spread of zombie RVs. Zombie RVs look acceptable at first glance. Underneath, they carry damage from neglect, flooding, or long storage. Water intrusion rots flooring. Moisture breeds mold. Electrical systems corrode quietly. These problems hide well. Cosmetic repairs mask deeper failure. Fresh surfaces distract from structural decay. Paperwork does not reveal this history clearly. Titles stay clean. Records stay thin. As volume increased, scrutiny weakened. Distressed units moved faster than inspections could follow. Buyers discovered issues later. Repairs exceeded value quickly. Health risks followed. Mold exposure is not cosmetic. Wiring failures are not minor. These units circulate because pressure favors movement over verification. Once released, responsibility becomes difficult to trace. Zombie RVs thrive in fast markets under strain. They represent the worst outcome of collapse. Cheap becomes catastrophic when hidden damage surfaces. The risk is delayed, which makes it dangerous. This is where savings disappear after purchase, not before. Hidden damage thrives in fast markets. Visual condition misleads, and documentation lags reality. Moisture, corrosion, and neglect leave signatures that appear later. These risks matter because repair costs escalate rapidly. When discovery happens post-purchase, remedies vanish. What looked affordable becomes irreversible, turning savings into long-term liability. When price collapses, outruns safeguards, the real cost appears later. Why high-end units collapse first. High-end RVs absorb stress faster than any other segment because their structure magnifies pressure. Carrying costs scale with size, complexity, and price. Insurance, storage, maintenance, and transport all rise sharply as units move up market. When movement slows, those costs compound quickly. The buyer pool at the top is narrow by design. Fewer households can absorb six-figure obligations, and fewer still are willing to commit when uncertainty rises. That limited audience disappears faster than mass market demand. Value erosion accelerates because substitutes appear quickly. Buyers step down categories rather than wait. Each defection removes support from the top tier. depreciation math is unforgiving. Large original balances meet shrinking interest, and value drops accelerate faster than mid-range units. Once high-end units stall, they drag perception down across categories. They signal stress before it appears elsewhere. This collapse does not spread evenly. It moves geographically next, reshaping outcomes region by region. High-end segments amplify downturns because fixed costs dominate outcomes. Flexibility disappears faster when obligations remain large. Small buyer pools magnify hesitation. When confidence weakens, exits accelerate. These units lead declines because they require conviction to move. Without it, depreciation accelerates faster than utility can justify. Location determines how fast pressure becomes visible. Why rural markets lag, then drop harder. Urban markets absorb shock first. Liquidity runs higher. Listings move faster, and price signals update quickly. Adjustments appear early and often. Rural markets lag because turnover is slower and alternatives fewer. Units sit longer without forcing immediate action. That delay creates false stability. Job exposure amplifies the impact later. Manufacturing, service, and transport roles cluster around RV economies. When activity slows, income drops locally. Recovery paths stretch longer. Fewer buyers, lenders, and outlets limit rebound speed. Once decline reaches these areas, it accelerates rapidly. There is less flexibility and fewer exits. The lag creates sharper drops because adjustment happens all at once rather than gradually. This shift changes who holds leverage. Control moves quietly as timing diverges. Those who waited now face steeper consequences than those who adjusted early. The market does not treat regions equally. It punishes delay. In normal markets, financing is just a tool. In stressed markets, financing is a bottleneck. Cash removes the bottleneck, so it becomes power. Sellers stop optimizing and start escaping. That's why best price gets replaced with fast close. And when that shift happens, the bottom doesn't announce itself. It forms in silence. Why cash controls? This market now, cash changes outcomes because it removes friction instantly. Financing delays vanish. Appraisal gaps stop mattering. Approval risk disappears. When liquidity tightens, speed becomes power. Sellers stop prioritizing optimization and start prioritizing certainty. A guaranteed close matters more than a slightly better price that may never materialize. Cash removes contingencies, and under pressure, simplicity becomes leverage. This is where advantage quietly shifts. Action happens while others hesitate. Buyers relying on financing must wait for approvals, updated appraisals, and lender thresholds that keep changing. Cash buyers move immediately. That timing edge compounds. It shortens negotiations, compresses decisions, and improves terms quietly rather than publicly. This is not preference, it is necessity. Those holding liquidity dictate the pace. Others are forced to react. This inversion defines this phase of the market. Power moves away from promise and toward readiness. Deals begin happening off schedule and outside public timelines. Concessions appear privately. Units clear before listings adjust. By the time price drops show up online, the best opportunities are already gone. Cash controls outcomes because it resolves problems instantly. But timing remains uncertain. Floors do not announce themselves. Markets do not pause to confirm they are finished falling. That uncertainty is what traps most participants. So, how do you know a bottom is forming if prices still look confusing? What changes first auction clearance rates, credit behavior, dealer urgency, or inventory movement? And what is the cost of waiting for certainty? Because certainty usually arrives after the best opportunities disappear. That is why signals matter more than headlines. How the bottom forms. Market bottoms arrive without ceremony. They appear when desperation peaks and hesitation disappears. Auction clearance rates stabilize first. Units stop failing to sell. Dealer language changes. Urgency replaces optimism. Incentives stop stacking. Offers become direct. Inventory shrinks unevenly. Some categories clear faster. The window is narrow. It opens briefly and closes without notice. Waiting too long carries risk. Acting too early does as well. Signals matter more than headlines. The next 30 days carry disproportionate weight. More value will change hands soon than in prior years combined. This phase rewards preparation, not prediction. Those watching closely will recognize it. Those waiting for certainty will miss it. That is how bottoms form. They punish delay. They reward readiness. Bottoms form when urgency exhausts itself. Participants stop waiting for better outcomes and accept present reality. Signals stabilize quietly, not dramatically. This phase punishes hesitation and rewards readiness. Timing windows remain brief because once balance returns, leverage evaporates. Recognition matters more than prediction during these moments, and they never repeat themselves on schedule. The market isn't dead, it's just quiet and quiet. Markets reward preparation, not hype. Are you waiting or are you already positioning? Let me know in the comments. Like the video if you value clarity over excitement, and subscribe so you don't miss the shift when it happens.